Have you ever just looked at the political landscape lately and felt completely lost? Like the old rules don't make sense anymore, and maybe the whole system is just broken? Well, you're not alone. It's a feeling a lot of us share, the sense that we're in some kind of crisis of democracy. So let's explore that and ask, is there a better way? So let me ask you something right off the bat. When you look at the political parties out there, do you feel like any of them really represent you? Or are you kind of forced to pick and choose, agreeing with one party on one thing and a totally different party on another? That feeling right there is what we're going to dig into. So where does all this confusion come from? Well, our source for this explainer, an analysis from Professor C's Hamelink, he has a name for it: the new unclarity. You know those once solid dividing lines between left and right? They've become so blurry that you start to wonder if the labels even mean anything at all anymore. And this really shows you the shift. It used to be pretty straightforward. You had clear divisions, predictable parties, you pretty much knew what you were getting. But now, it's all over the place. Parties take positions that seem to come out of left field, and we have this massive rise of floating voters, people who are way more loyal to an issue than they are to a party. It's a whole new ballgame. Okay, check this out for a real-world head-scratcher that just proves the point. In the Netherlands, a traditionally right-wing party proposed a 2-year rent freeze. A policy you'd totally expect from the left. But then, get this, the main left-wing parties voted against it. So if you're a voter worried about rent, who are you supposed to vote for? That right there is the new unclarity in action. But all this confusion, it's not just some accident. Professor Hamelink argues that it points to a much, much deeper issue. Maybe the problem isn't the specific politicians or the parties. Maybe it's the very idea of political parties themselves. Maybe the whole system is the flaw. And here is the core argument. Just creating new parties or shuffling the old ones around isn't going to fix anything, because the system of party politics itself is what needs a serious re-examination. They're actually part of the problem. So to understand why, we've got to talk about something called political dogmatism. And this is where it gets really interesting, because Hamelink makes this fascinating comparison. He says political parties operate a lot like religious organizations. They have their set of absolute truths, their dogma, and everyone is just expected to accept it, no questions asked. And when you look at it this way, the parallels are pretty striking. A religion has its core truths. A party has its dogma. They demand party discipline, which is really just a nice word for obedience. And this creates a fierce us versus them mentality, where your side is always right, and having a reasonable debate, even within your own party, becomes basically impossible. So what's the end result? Well, this is the really damaging part. When dogmatism takes over, politics stops being a search for the best solutions for everybody. Instead, it just becomes a power struggle. It's a battle about who is right, not what is right. And that helps no one. Okay, so if the party system is the problem, is there an alternative? Are we just stuck? Well, no. Let's pivot and take a look at a real-world example of a system that works very differently: the Swiss model of referendum democracy. At its core, referendum democracy is actually pretty simple. Instead of handing over your power to a representative for 4 years and hoping for the best, the citizens themselves get to vote directly on specific laws and issues. And this is the most important part: those votes are binding. What the people say goes. So how does it actually work? Well, it starts with regular citizens. They can gather enough signatures to put a proposal on the ballot. Then, and this part is brilliant, the government sends a booklet to every single voter that lays out the arguments both for and against. It's designed to create an informed debate, not one based on angry soundbites. And finally, the people vote, yes or no. And this isn't some rare, special occasion. In Switzerland, they do this 4 times a year. Just think about that for a second. That regularity completely changes what voting feels like. It stops being this huge, high-stakes battle and just becomes a normal, expected part of being a citizen. It turns participation into a habit. So what makes this system click? Well, for one, it's truly bottom-up. Power flows from the people upward. 2, it keeps the focus on specific issues, not just vague party loyalties. And maybe the most important thing is that it acts as a kind of national classroom. Over time, people learn to weigh different options and think about what's best for the country as a whole, not just what's in it for them. But here's the thing. This isn't just about swapping out one voting system for another. To really wrap our heads around this, we have to see that a model like this requires a huge shift in how we think about what it means to be a citizen in a democracy. The philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who was actually from Geneva, he absolutely nailed this idea. He said that a people that gives its decision-making power away is no longer free. Think about that. True freedom isn't just choosing who gets to be in charge, it's holding on to the power to decide in the first place. And this democratic mindset, it's not something you're born with. It's a skill. And like any skill, you learn it through practice. It starts small, right, in your own community. When you have to debate with your neighbors about, say, a new road in your village, that's where you learn the real habits of democracy. Listening, compromising, and thinking about the common good. And that brings us to the real lessons here for any country. To build a healthier democracy, we need to create a culture where we actually listen to each other. We need our schools to teach not just facts, but critical thinking and compassion. And we all need to start seeing democracy as a responsibility, something we actively do, not just a right we use every few years. Ultimately, it all comes down to this really simple but powerful idea from the educator Paulo Freire. At the heart of a truly working democracy is a fundamental trust in the common sense and the basic decency of ordinary people. So, I'll leave you with this final question to think about. Looking at your own community, your own country, what would it take? Could a system that puts power directly into the hands of the people, could that actually work where you live? It's definitely something to chew on.